Hey guys, my name is Jemmy and today we are going to be looking at the Stone Vigil dungeon in Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn. This dungeon is accessible via the Duty Finder or on the map on the Kawertha Central Highlands. I would say, I guess, the nearest teleporter would be Camp Dragonhead, where you would head west and north when you reach White Brim Fort. This dungeon is available to you once you reach level of 41 and sinks off at 43. It consists of a 4-member party, which is made up usually of 1 tank, 1 healer, and 2 DPS. So the types of mobs that you will be encountering within the Stone Vigil are all dragon kind of based. So the Dravian Outwalker right here looks like very much a drake, and the Outflyer in the background actually kind of looks like a dragonfly. I guess, I don't know, play on words kind of thing. But yeah, so once you enter the dungeon, you're gonna have to work your way through the corridors just like a maze, or kind of, it's like a fort kind of theme, so, or a castle fort theme. So you have to go through the winding halls in which there are certain areas of the map where you'll encounter slight surprises. I guess after the first time it wouldn't be a surprise to you very much, but in your first time you might want to tread carefully, as you know, certain things might pop out thin air or something like that. So we see another dragon type mob here. Literally the name is like Dragon Ibis something. But yeah, if you go a little bit beyond this mob, I would say like, what, 2 steps, 3 steps, there is a dragon that will actually pop out. You cannot engage this dragon right here. He will just blow fire breaths at you. But you can't engage him because he'll just come down and do the attack and then go back up. It is a conal AoE, but the thing about this is that if you are encountering a mob in front of where the dragon's supposed to be attacking, it will trigger over and over again if someone like walks back and forth or runs back and forth through this thing. So if you have a mob there, you definitely as a tank want to move them away so that, you know, the continual dragon coming down and doing fire breath at you doesn't happen. So moving along, of course you'll encounter more ads. If a dungeon didn't have ads, then it would be pretty boring, don't you think? But this is a great time for you to start building the spirit bond on your gear. Now, what spirit bonding is, if you don't know what that is, it's basically when you have a convertible gear, or whether it's not convertible or not, but like any kind of gear will have a type of spirit bond. It's basically how often you use the item. Now, if you get that spirit bond to 100% and your gear that you have on that has a spirit bond of 100% says convertible, then you'll be able to decompose that item into something called materia. Now, this materia could range from some stats such as determination, dexterity, parry, accuracy, crit rate, piety, mind, intelligence, any of that sort. Now, the materias come from decomposing that gear. The type of materia that you get will be at random. So some of it will help you out in something that you can keep to bind to other gear, or you can either sell it on the auction house to get yourself a little bit of money so that you have it saved away for, you know, your next big gear that you want to purchase or make. Or if you didn't know, they're introducing mog houses soon, so maybe you might need the money for that. So yeah. This particular room will have a bunch of ads in it. So what you want your tank to do is pull the closest ones that are roaming around instead of stationary ones. You want to pull them out into the hall and take them a little bit at a time. If you have your tank running full speed, then it's going to be a lot tougher for the tank to keep aggro on all the ads, the DPS to know which one to take down first, and the healer will have such a hard time trying to keep your tank alive, which isn't really a good mix if this is your first time in Stone Vigil. So slow sometimes is good, so you might want to take your time with things. After you get more gear or you're more used to how this dungeon works, then of course you could take bigger bites. If you are the one who is leading your party playing the tank class such as a gladiator, paladin, marauder, warrior, then the Stone Vigil would probably be the first dungeon that you will have a gear check with. Not by other people in your party, but just in general, when you are going through this dungeon, you're going to have a difficult time if you have outdated gear. Even the lower dungeons, of course, you have to have know-how and skill to get through them, but majority of the time, the lower dungeons you are able to coast by with the gear that you have obtained with quests, that you got as rewards and such. But for the Stone Vigil, you kind of need to probably check the auction house to make sure that you have updated gear, which you want to be in the range of the 40s. Now, if your accessories such as rings, necklaces, bracelets are all level 20, then that's definitely outdated and you might want to purchase some improvements before you try the Stone Vigil, just so that you'll have an easier time. Because if you have outdated gear, which you're missing, you know, a little bit of strength, a little bit of health, it might not seem like such a big deal, but if you're missing that from 5 pieces of your accessory, then that will surely add up, meaning that your healer will have to work a lot harder. You're gonna have to struggle in trying to keep alive and also keeping aggro at the same time. So as a tank, I definitely feel like this would be the time to probably go through your gear and make sure that you are equipped with around level 40 stuff. I'm not saying you have to have all the best stuff and stacked out in materia and stuff like that. Just have the right level gear. That's what I'm saying. Everyone else too. That doesn't exclude anyone else, but for the tank is especially important because there's only one tank, and if the tank can't hold aggro or the tank can't manage to stay alive, then no one else will. So that was my spiel on updated gear. We have gotten to the first boss of the Stone Vigil, which his name is kind of cute. Yudo. But even though his name is kind of cute, he does some stuff that you will have to be aware of. Now, usually, most of the times, the boss will stay on the tank as long as the tank holds aggro. But at certain points, the boss will de-aggro from the tank and start running into a weird direction somewhere else. At that time, Chuda will do an attack called Swig or Swing. I'm not really sure on the pronunciation of that, but regardless, there is no indicator. So he's about to do it right now. There is no indicator of this. And it's like basically a conus attack, which is kind of invisible because there is no indicator that we are so used to now, which is usually in the color coded red. So the best thing to do is, if you see Chudo moving, you want to follow him and be right behind his butt, like smack on it. You don't want to be anywhere else. You don't want to be in front of him because you will get hit. And he hits you with, a pacification. Also, I believe a silence at the same time. It lasts for quite a bit. So you, as a healer or, any other person, you definitely don't want to be hit by these things. For Chudo, this is his most, devastating move. After he does the swing, then he returns back to the tank and, continues to keep aggro on him, and only de-aggroes when he's about to do that swing move. So if you see him going somewhere else, that's your cue to follow, like, a chick following its mom or something like that. So, and just stay behind him. After Chudo gets down to below 50% of his health, he will do swing twice. So you want to be aware of that. Usually before that 50%, he will only do it once. After 50%, he will do it twice. So he just moved, he's about to do his first swing, and then you see in succession that second swing. Besides that, that's really all you have to worry about for Chudo. There is one other attack that he does, which if you are the tank, then you might want to be aware of. It's called the Lion's Breath, where he does a flame DOT over time. The healer, it would be nice if you cleanse it, or you could just out heal it just to make sure he's topped off. It does a burning effect on him that you probably want to cleanse, but if your heals are strong enough to muster through that, then, you know, more power to you. So rinse and repeat that, and Chudo will go down, down, down. Once you defeat Chudo, you'll be awarded with a treasure coffer that of course has some nice loot in it, hopefully for you. You will also be awarded with 2 elegant tombstones. The Stone Vigil is the first dungeon you should start encountering these elegant tombstones of philosophy. There are 2 types, philosophy and mythology. These philosophy tombstones are used to purchase gear that is known as the Dark Light set, which is better than your AF set that you had gotten from the quest from leveling to level 50. So those are the tombstones that you'll encounter in the Stone Vigil. However, later on you will encounter mythology tombstones that are used to purchase AF2 gears that is better than the Dark Light set. And also items that are used as materials for, you know, crafting gear. But we'll go more into mythology when there is a dungeon that actually drops the mythology stuff. So back to philosophy tombstones, you are awarded 2 tombstones with Chudo Wudo, and by the end of the Stone Vigil you should have accumulated a total of 20. Now if you encounter large groups of mobs such as this, you can either choose to pull one out successfully, like the dragon could have been pulled out by itself, but you know, I think that was a tank mistake. But yeah, you could just kind of have to roll with the punches sometimes. So if you have a group of mobs aggro such as this, you could either choose to sleep off certain mobs, but the important part about that is that you want your other teammates to know which one you slept so they don't accidentally wake them back up. To let you know, the dragons cannot be slept, so basically don't even waste your MP on that. Now if you look at the top of the steps where the ads are, at the very most top step, that is where the dragon that we saw earlier on, who that came down and, you know, blows a breath of fire and then just runs back away, just like that, is actually there. So since the ad is over there, the untargetable ad, you basically want to do is have your entire team move up top of the steps and into the corridor or the hall, or you want the tank to aggro all the ads on top and then bring them down into a large room such as this. What you don't want to do is you don't want to straddle the stairs, because like I said before and earlier on, the dragon is just going to keep on coming down back and forth such as that, and just do unnecessary damage that you really don't need to be taking. So as a tank, be mindful about where your teammates are. Now, if you're just a tank and you think that you're so great and you're just by yourself, I highly doubt you can still survive yourself around 4 ads without dying. You need the rest of your teammates. So know where they are too. Are they in the large room down below and you're just randomly by yourself? Or are they in the hall and past you? So knowing where your teammates are would help you situate yourself somewhere near them so that they could position themselves around you, so that make sure that you don't die and also the ad dies. Simple as that. Now if you went into the bottom, into this room, then obviously you're going to have to go on top of the stairs and meet the dragon one last time, but no big deal. The healer could just out-heal that. You might want to take a little break up on top to make sure that everyone's topped off before you continue down the hall. And here's that nice surprise I was talking about, the ice sprites. There are 3 that pop up out of nowhere. What you want your tank to do is get aggro of them as quick as possible before, you know, someone else gets aggro. And kind of pull them a little bit back because that dragon might accidentally aggro if the tank was in the middle somewhere there. You definitely don't want to continue stacking adds more than there are already, especially since these ice sprites are magic based. Now this is where that tank gear check that I emphasized so much about comes into play, because even for this tank, you know, against 3 ice sprites and heals, he was, you know, dipping in and out like that. So yeah, and once the ice sprites are taken care of, you could go ahead and tackle that dragon that's patrolling the hall. Now if you immediately turn to the left from where the ice sprites had popped up from, there is another room full of adds and also a treasure coffer. You could choose to either just get the treasure coffer and run, and that person who had originally gotten aggro, which usually probably be the tank, just die, and then, you know, you could just leave the adds alone and then, you know, just roll on the loot. Or you could do it this way, just take care of the adds and get the treasure coffer and move on. Now we roll up on my favorite boss of Stone Vigil, Crochet. I think that's how you pronounce the name. I don't know. They come up with these names and it's just so difficult to pronounce. But there is a bit of a mechanism involved with him. What you want the tank to do is keep the boss away from these 3 cannons that I am in front of. Preferably the right hand bottom corner would be the best, so that, you know, it's a bit of away from the cannons. And also what the healer can do is be situated between the people here near the cannons and the tank, so that, you know, all the heals could reach everybody, even though this battle arena is relatively small. These cannons behind me play a big part of this fight, as in one person should be on cannon duty. Right now it says there's a dragon basically that descends from the skies, so one of these 3 windows will have a dragon that comes down. You will have to interact with these cannons in time so that the cannon will go off and basically shoot the dragon from the sky. If the dragons are left, then they will continually spout out attacks, attacking your party, and it's just really not good. Unnecessary damage, I say, right? So whenever you see that little sign come up where like Isengard or Isengard or whatever, Isbind descends from the skies, you see where he comes down from, interact with that particular cannon and shoot him down. The other mechanism that you will have to watch out for is that wind thing right there, whirlwinds. Crochet will shoot out whirlwinds that will last for a period of time and move as well. They will travel across the battle arena relatively slowly, but they will. You don't want to be near them because they will continually attack you. Because of these whirlwind attacks, this is why I personally feel that there should be 1 person near the cannons, not 2, because that will increase the chances of whirlwinds being sent over the cannon's way. And since the whirlwinds aren't like an attack and disappear kind of thing, they kind of last or sit there. You don't want a whirlwind sitting there in front of the cannon that you have to interact with, because you know you might get damaged or you might die that way. So that's personally why I feel there should be one person dedicated to cannon duty. It should relatively be a caster class, so that they could be near the cannons but at the same time still get off their attacks without any strain. They don't have to go in like a melee does and then run back out to get a cannon. Now, if you don't have any casting classes, you still definitely don't want your healer to be doing the cannon duty. Not that it's impossible, but usually, it's just better insurance if your healer is just focused on healing. So this is probably the time when, if your group is made up of all melee classes, then it's kind of like suck it up, you all have to go back and forth. So besides those mechanisms, then crochet is relatively easy to do. And I also have another video of crochet being tanked by Titan. If a summoner's pet can do it, you can do it. And I will actually post that video in another video, not together but separately, so that if you wanted to check it out on how it's done and stuff, you could definitely do so. There was no tank in our group. I guess he kind of just DC'd and left, so we kind of had to make do with what we got. So after crochet dies, of course, you'll be rewarded with another treasure coffer where you will just collect the loot. You'll be rewarded with more philosophy tombstones and continue on making your way to the last boss. And here you are surprised again with another party of ice sprites. But the mechanics is the same. You want the tank to aggro, healer heal, TPS DPS. So that's pretty much about it. And then just kill them off. I don't think that sounded as soothing as what my usual viewers say. The majority of the comments that I get is that, oh, your voice is very soothing and very, nice and stuff. But, I'll go out and say DPS and stuff. It's not going to sound so soothing. But yeah, I mean, in these 30-minute videos, man, they're so long. So I kind of have to fill them with interesting stuff. Gotta keep you interested-ish. Even though you should be interested in the content and stuff. But, yeah. Maybe I should ask you guys a question, or like throw a question out there so I see some of your responses or some of your opinions on certain matters, and you guys will know mine, so that in these long videos you're not bored with awkward silence. At the same time, when we're doing basically the same thing, it's different watching someone play a game and actually playing it for yourself. If you're playing it for yourself, you don't really see the time go by because you have to focus on staying alive. But if you're watching it, it's kind of like, oh my god, how many mob groups are there? So yeah. So what's a good question to ask? How about this? I always want to know what everyone's first MMO was, or first game was. Actually, since Final Fantasy is technically an MMORPG, what is the first MMO that you had ever played? I'm not talking about like I played it for a day and I quit kind of thing. I'm talking about like, as a gamer, you seriously invested some time into. So let me know in the comments below on what kind of game that was your first game, because that would be interesting to see, and how many people started off their gaming obsession, I guess I could say, with the same game. I guess I should go first on that. My first serious MMO, wow. I played a lot, I guess you could say like one day-ish. I tried it out and it wasn't my thing kind of thing. But the first game that I ever really truly played was a game that was free to play, which is probably why I played it, because I was super young. Was game from PWI. It was called PWI from Perfect World Entertainment. It was a Chinese company-based game. Really cat shop heavy, but it was super fun when I played it when I was young. So yeah, there's my answer to that. And now we are at the last boss. Yay, we made it! Now the last boss has some kind of mechanics to him as well, of course, as you know, you would think a last boss would have. So the boss will aggro the tank, and of course the tank's job is to keep aggro upon the boss so that it doesn't stray anywhere else. However, the dragon will actually throw out random circle indicators such as that right there. It's going to be in red, where he will do an attack called Sheets of Ice, and that area will become affected with the icy effect there. Now even after the attack has gone off, it will still stay there for a period of time, and if you walk over there you will actually get a status effect, a negative status effect on you. So you definitely want to be aware of where you are standing. Now this goes for this part too. Now the boss will de-aggro from the tank regardless of what the tank does, and he will rise up into the air, and it's kind of like the battlefield is a square, if you can imagine, and the boss will be at 1. So he either does his attack in a linear motion. There's no U-turn, there's no weird ass curve, it's just in a straight line. So it'll either be vertical or horizontal. It won't be indicated by a red linear bar, but rather, you know, that sheet icy effect. So it's a little bit hard to see considering that the ground is already has like white speckles in it. So it's kind of hard to see that glacier kind of effect. But just keep an eye out that when the boss goes into the air, you want to be aware of those huge bars of lines, and you want to avoid it as much as possible. Now a good indicator is that if you have the know-how and skill to turn your camera up a little bit, you'll actually see where the dragon is hovering. So where he hovers will be where he draws his linear line, or does his flight path, if you want to call it. So there's the linear bar. It's exactly smack dab in the middle. As a caster, since you don't really use TP, you could use a sprint and sprint away, and maybe you could survive with a tad of your life. For the tank, it's very important that you stay away from everyone else, because after the boss does his linear, like huge linear AoE kind of thing, he will return back to the tank. So wherever the tank is wherever he is going to land. Now as a tank, if you are, you know, smack in the middle of your party and the boss does his like frontal like AoE move, then you're basically wiping your entire party. So you don't want that. So stay away from the rest of your party mates when he goes into the air, so that when he comes back down, he won't be near anyone else except you. So you see that he was hovering right there, and he's going to do a horizontal attack like that. He just saw his wings kind of fly on the top of my screen. So if you have the camera savvy know-how, and you could like kind of shift up, then you will see where he hovers, so that you will know where he will do his linear path with. For me, I don't know, I was just kind of lazy. But you definitely don't want to do that for your first time. You don't want to be lazy. You want to be attentive and have that survival instinct. So besides that, really, there's really not much else you have to worry about for this last boss. It's pretty much a rinse and repeat at that point. Just be aware of your surroundings, be aware of those red indicator circles, don't step in those sheets of ice, and be aware of that linear attack. Also, one other thing is that when you are doing limit breakers, be sure that the boss doesn't fly up and away when you're doing your limit breaker. There are times when you'll catch him right before he is untargetable anymore, and basically the attack will register, but sometimes I've seen it and I've done it too, it won't register, and then you would have lost 2 bars of limit breaker power. So you don't want to waste any of that. So that's about it, guys. Thank you so much for following me through this dungeon walkthrough slash advice of Stone Vigil. Hopefully all the things that I have said and told you will help you guys out when you are trying Stone Vigil for the first time yourself. It's a great place to definitely get some spirit bond going, start accumulating those philosophy tombstones so that you could acquire gear that is better than your AF and start heading on your way to more harder primal fights and, you know, all the end game goodie stuff. Keep in mind that everything I say is my own opinion and just advice on how I go about doing these things, and it's not the only way. So just remember that, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you haven't seen my most recent video of Final Fantasy XIV, you could check it out right here in the middle. Just go clicky on that, so that you never miss another video update again. You could go ahead and subscribe right up top. You can find me on other forms of social media such as Twitter and Facebook and more, with all the convenient links listed in the description box below. Thanks once again, and I will see you later. Bye.